Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Sauce. Sunday, NFL Week 10. Going to go through as many games as I can. Thursday night did not go my way. I had Bears -3, so that pushed. But I had the over, which wasn't even close. That's what I get for trying to catch a falling knife, man. These primetime unders. I tried to take a shot and go over, thinking I had two terrible red zone defenses. Didn't work out at all. So NFL Sunday, Week 10, let's roll.
Welcome to the Sauce. The Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
First up, let's start with the Germany game. We got Colts versus Patriots. New England catching 2 points, which is up from 1.5. Total is sitting at an even 43. So this number was sitting at 1.5 for most of the week. Action was coming in on the Colts. The number eventually does move up to 2 on most sports books. And it does seem like a lot of sharps are coming in and hammering New England at the 2. As of right now, I'm seeing 1.5s and 2s, though, if you look across the board. We'll start with some injury reports. Colts offensively, obviously, still no Anthony Richardson. I mean, I think he's out for the season. A couple of Colts wide receivers listed as questionable. Josh Downs has not practiced yet this week. Also, Alec Pierce is questionable. He participated in a light practice on Thursday. I would imagine he'll be a game-time decision. On the defensive side of the ball, the Colts are still missing that D tackle, Grover Stewart. He's suspended. I think he's got 2 more games before he comes back. There's definitely some issues in the secondary here. Starting corner Dallas Flowers is still on the IR. He's been out for about a month now. Juju Brents, who's one of the corners that would see a lot of extra reps with Flowers out, he's not going to play either. He's been out for a few weeks now. Linebacker Zaire Franklin is listed as questionable. Not sure if he's going to be back. He missed last week's game against Carolina. He did miss Wednesday's practice, but he participated in a light practice on Thursday, so another guy who probably will be a game-time decision. New England offensively still dealing with pretty much the same injuries they had last week. Riley Reif's still out. Trent Brown is out, so they're missing 2 big pieces on the offensive line. They're also having problems at wide receiver. Devontae Parker has been ruled out with a concussion, I believe. Kendrick Bourne, who's pretty much been their best guy out of that unit, he's on the IR. And Demario Douglas, that rising rookie that Mac Jones seemed to like, he would probably be wide receiver 2 with Parker and Bourne out. He might not play either. He's participating in light practice, though, so we'll see. On the defensive side of the ball, the Patriots are still crushed with injuries. In the secondary, we've got Marcus Jones still out. Christian Gonzalez, obviously out. That's 2 corners, but check this out. Of the remaining corners, J.C. Jackson also out. And Miles Bryant and Jonathan Jones are both questionable. Now, Bryant and Jones have been participating in light practice, so there's a chance they're going to play. But New England could be without 5 corners. They're 5 best corners in this game. As far as the defensive front goes, Matthew Judon's still out. But Wise and Bentley both participated in light practice. I think they're going to play. They were both listed as questionable last week, and they both ended up playing. So they were actually number 1 and number 2 on the team in tackles last week in the Washington game, so I'm assuming they're both good to go. So let's match these 2 teams up on the field, and we'll start with the Colts offense. Gardner Minshew has been doing Gardner Minshew things. I mean, very streaky, tough to get a real feel for him. One definite area that's a weakness for him has been passing against the blitz. When blitzed, Gardner Minshew is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Amongst 37 qualified quarterbacks this year, Gardner Minshew is 36th in yards per attempt, 30th in passer rating, and 36th in interceptions with 3. That's when he's blitzed. When he's not blitzed, though, amongst the same 37 qualified quarterbacks, he's 3rd, 11th, and tied for 6th in those same categories. Bad news for Minshew, New England blitzes a lot. New England's got a blitz rate of 34.4% on the year. That's 4th highest in the NFL. We just saw Gardner Minshew struggle to get anything going against the Carolina defense that's also top 10 in blitz rate. Against the Panthers, 17 of 26, 127 yards, 4.9 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no picks, and an 89 passer rating. We know New England is going to be sending extra guys after Minshew in this one. They're going to have to, because the pass defense has been a major disappointment this year. 23rd in pass defense DVOA, 19th in passer rating, 15th in yards per attempt. Last year, the Patriots were 3rd, 8th, and 8th in those 3 categories. So the pass defense, maybe it's the injuries, who knows? It's taken a huge step back this year. If the Patriots pass defense can't stop Gardner Minshew overseas with blitzes coming at him, then New England's defense has officially reached rock bottom. As far as trying to establish the run, we know the Colts are going to try to run the ball. I mean, Taylor and Moss, it's been a the backbone of their offense this year, and they've done a pretty good job of that this year. They're 6th in rushing DVOA, 11th in yards per carry, just 28th in adjusted line yards, so the offensive line analytically hasn't been great creating space in the run game. But last week is definitely a little concerning because they played the Panthers, who have the worst run defense in the NFL, arguably, bottom 3 run defense, just 78 yards on 30 carries, 2.6 yards per carry against the Panthers. Now they play a New England defense that's been good as hell against the run. They're 5th in run defense DVOA, 2nd in the NFL in yards per carry allowed to running backs. And that's concerning because look at what the Colts did on the ground the other 4 times they've played a top 5 run defense. Cleveland, Baltimore, and Jacksonville twice. They've had 4 games against top 5 run defenses. In those games, just 104 rushing yards per game, 3.52 yards per carry, and they're 1-3 straight up in those 4 games. If the Patriots defense can keep Taylor and Moss from moving the chains consistently on them and force Gardner Minshew to make plays through the air against that blitz, then the Patriots should have a solid chance of not only covering, winning this game outright. On the other side of the ball, let's take a look at the Colts pass defense, who just made Bryce Young look terrible on their last game. Bryce Young was just 24 of 39, 173 yards, 4.4 yards per pass attempt. It's just abysmal. He threw 3 picks in that game. 2 of them went for touchdowns, just a 48 passer rating. That really boosted the Colts pass defense numbers on the season because now they're up to 10th in opponent's passer rating, 15th in completion percentage, and 12th in pass defense DVOA. And I don't see why those numbers won't improve again this week. I mean, they're playing Mac Jones. We thought Mac Jones was bad last year. I mean, with Patricia and Joe Judge calling the plays as a combined offensive coordinators, we thought they would improve this year, but somehow they've been even worse. Last year, he was 22nd in passer grade, 25th in yards per attempt, 28th in interceptions, 10th and 13th in big-time throw and turnover-worthy throw percentage. This year, 27th, 32nd, 37th, 22nd, and 33rd. So somehow he's performing even worse this year with Bill O'Brien at OC than he did last year. We've really only seen one good performance from Mac Jones this entire season. It was that home game against the Bills. He completed 83% of his passes, 272 yards, 9.1 yards per attempt, a 126.7 passer rating. But if you look at his numbers from the other 8 games, 8, that's a solid sample size. It's not good, down to the 74 passer rating. So it's extremely unrealistic to assume Mac Jones could just suddenly snap out of it against the Colts and have himself a great game, especially with the lack of weapons. I mean, Devontae Parker is out, like I mentioned earlier, Bourne on the IR, and that new rookie he likes, Demario Douglas. Not only is he questionable, but he operates mainly out of the slot. That's bad news for the Patriots because the Colts' best corner, their best defender probably, is Kenny Moore. He operates primarily as the nickel. He's allowing an insanely low 67 passer rating on targets directed at him. If you're looking for a positive angle on the New England offense, you can find one in the run game. And I know you're probably like, what? New England can't run the ball? But hold on. First of all, Colts defense against the run has definitely been disappointing this year. Just 23rd in DVOA, 16th in yards per carry allowed, and they started off hot. In their first 2 games, they were allowing just 78 rushing yards per game, 2.57 yards per carry. In their 7 games since then, they've been getting run on. They're allowing 139 rushing yards per game on 4.4 yards per carry. In fact, it's starting to look like the Colts can only defend the run when they play a division rival. Against teams in the AFC South, the Colts are allowing just 82 rushing yards per game on 2.96 yards per carry. Against the other 5 opponents, 160 rushing yards per game on 4.7 yards per carry. And don't look now, but it seems like the Patriots are finally figuring out a way to get the run game going. Through 5 games, they were averaging just 83.8 rush yards per game on 3.27 yards per carry. In their last 4 games, 91 rushing yards per game on 4.5 yards per carry. So the run game slowly starting to show up for the Patriots. As far as making a bet here, man, I hate these 9:30 a.m. ones. Even if you don't like the game, there's so much riding on it because it starts the day. It sets the tone for the day. I faded Gardner Minshew as a road favorite last week and lost. But the main reason I lost was Bryce Young threw 2 pick sixes. And I could say, well, that won't happen again. But you know what? Mac Jones might go and do the same thing. I'm going to roll with the Patriots here. I'm going to take the 2 points. I think New England should be able to run the ball on the Colts. Public is heavy on Indianapolis. So I don't like it. I hate it, but I'll be betting it. Give me New England +2. Next up, 49ers are on the road in Jacksonville. Jags catching a full 3 at home here, total sitting at 45. This number's been sitting at 3 for basically the whole week. We're seeing a pros versus public setup here. Public is definitely leaning 49ers. Sharp action definitely leaning towards Jacksonville +3. Start with some injury reports. A couple concerns on the offensive line for San Francisco. Aaron Banks didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday, so they may be missing him at guard. He hasn't missed a game yet this season. The big one is obviously Trent Williams at left tackle. He did return to practice on Wednesday, but was limited. Everyone's talking like he's definitely coming back. I'm not sure about that. To me, he looks like he's a game time decision. Good news is Deebo Samuel is back on the field. He's participating in full practices. He's still technically listed as probable, but he's going to play. On the defensive side of the ball, San Francisco does have some injuries, but it's mostly to the depth. As far as the main pieces, only Jason Hargrave is questionable. He was limited in practice on Thursday. He actually wasn't even on the injury report to start the week. Then they added him, so I guess he got hurt in practice or something. Over on the Jacksonville side, the offense is in good shape here. Looks like they're going to get their new guard on the field. They traded for Ezra Cleveland from the Vikings. He's questionable, but he's been participating in light practice all week. Also, looks like Zay Jones may return to the field. He hasn't played in over a month. He hasn't missed a practice this week, so Jags should be ready to roll offensively. And the same goes for the Jacksonville defense as well. A couple defensive backs on the report, Tyson Campbell and Andre Sisco, but neither of them have missed a practice yet this week, so I would say they both most likely will be on the field. All right, let's match these two teams up, and we'll start with Brock Purdy. After arguably the most insane start to an NFL career as a quarterback in history, we're starting to see Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense look human. I mean, they fell off a cliff, whether it's Trent Williams being out, whether it's Deebo Samuel being out, or whether it's opposing DCs finally figuring out what gives Brock Purdy problems. Who knows for sure, but there's no doubt been a drop in production. Through the first 5 games, Brock Purdy, 72% completions, 9 touchdowns, no picks, 123 passer rating. The offense as a whole for San Francisco, 33 points a game, converting nearly 50% of their third downs, averaging less than a half a turnover per game. In the last 3, Brock Purdy's down to 3 touchdowns, 5 picks, 78 passer rating, and the offense is averaging just 17 points a game, 2.3 turnovers per game. Brock Purdy was actually playing pretty well in the Vikings game until he had that concussion injury, or an alleged concussion, I should say. From that point on, he turned the ball over a couple times, was not looking like himself. So do we think that bye week is exactly what he needed? It's possible. Even after those 3 bad games, the 49ers on the season still have probably the top passing attack in the league analytically. First in DVOA, second in passer rating, first in yards per pass attempt. So how do they match up against this Jags defense? Well, Jacksonville's defense has been surprisingly good. Now, it's not really shocking that they're good against the run, because they were good against the run last year, but they've been great against the pass. Last year, they were 29th in pass defense DVOA, 18th in opponent passer rating. This year, they're 4th and 5th. This is a great pass defense. And some bad news for Brock Purdy is the Jags run a lot of zone coverage. 66.4% of the Jags defensive snaps this year have been in zone. That's the 5th most in the NFL. Brock Purdy's been much better against man coverage. He's 3rd in passer rating, 3rd in touchdown rate against man coverage. Against zone coverage, 9th and 21st. The good news for Brock Purdy would be Jacksonville's pass rush hasn't been there this year. They're just 29th in pressure rate, generating pressure on just 25.7% of opponent dropbacks. In case you didn't know, Brock Purdy from a clean pocket is like a cheat code. When he's given a clean pocket, he's averaging 10.4 yards per pass attempt. 10.4. That's first in the NFL. First in passer rating, second in adjusted completion percentage. When he's pressured, those numbers drop to 9th, tied for 26th, 12th, and 18th. Let's switch it over to the run game, and it's not just the 49ers passing attack that slowed down. I mean, Christian McCaffrey was off to an insane start to this season. Through the first 4 games, he was averaging 115 yards per game, 5.74 yards per carry. But look at the step back he's taken in the last 4 games. Just 48 yards per game, 3.38 yards per carry. Yes, Trent Williams missing a couple games is definitely a factor, but also we got to take a look at his competition. In the first 4 games, here are the run defense rankings for the 49ers opponents in the first 4 games. 20th, 26th, 28th, and 19th. In the last 4 games, 15th, 8th, 5th, and 31st. Well, 31st. So part of it might be, the injuries. Debo's out. Allows defenses to focus more on CMC, but Also, part of it might be we're finally seeing the 49ers see some tough run defenses. And things aren't going to get any easier for Christian McCaffrey this weekend because the Jags run defense is elite. It was elite last year and it's elite again this year. On the season, they're 4th in run defense DVOA, 4th in yards per carry allowed, 3rd in adjusted line yards. And they just seem to be heating up now. The Jags run defense in the last 4 games, they're holding opponents to just 63.8 rushing yards per game on 3.19 yards per carry. So nobody's been running the ball in the Jags. Situational stats on this side of the ball, kind of a wash here. 49ers have been great on 3rd down and in the red zone, but the Jags defense has also been really great on 3rd downs and in the red zone. I know a lot of people are thinking the 49ers are healthy coming off a bye and they're just going to show up and be the best offense in the NFL again. I'm not so sure about that. On the road against this Jags defense that's very underrated, I think they're going to put up a fight. I think we're going to see the 49ers offense struggle again. Now, on the other side of the ball, let's talk about the 49ers defense. And obviously, we just mentioned how the 49ers offensively were seeing a drop-off in production. But you could say the same thing about the 49ers pass defense. On the season, they still got great numbers. They're 11th in pass defense DVOA, 6th in pass rating, 6th in yards per attempt. But their last 2 games, Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins, they just tore this defense up. The 2 of them combined, 318 passing yards per game, 82% completions, 5 touchdowns and a pick, and a 125 passer rating. The 6 quarterbacks they played other than those 2, just 215 yards per game, 65 passer rating. And it has to bring up the question, you know what? Maybe the 49ers defense was a little overvalued as far as defending the pass, because look who they started the season off against. The Steelers and Kenny Pickett, they're 21st in passing DVOA. Rams 19th, Giants 32nd, Cardinals 27th. The Cowboys, that was a good opponent for them. They're at 15th in passing DVOA. Browns 28th. Then they play the Bengals, who are 18th, but those numbers are skewed because Joe Burrow just was so bad to start the first few weeks. We know that the Bengals passing offense is higher than 18th, and the Vikings are 12th. So they finally see some dynamic passing attacks, and they got ripped apart. I mean, the Jags are 10th in passing DVOA and 12th in passer rating. And want to know what the Vikings and Bengals have in common? They protect the quarterback. They're both top 12 in adjusted sack rate. Jacksonville does as well. In fact, the Jags offensive line has been great in pass protection so far this season. 3rd in pressure rate allowed, 12th in adjusted sack rate, 4th in QB hurry rate allowed. It's the perfect offensive line to match up against this 49ers pass rush that's been great in generating pressure, but struggles to get the quarterback to the ground. 3rd in pressure rate, but 28th in adjusted sack rate. Some more good news for Trevor Lawrence. 49ers basically live in zone coverage. 70.2% of the 49ers defensive snaps this year have been in zone coverage. That's the 2nd most in the NFL. Look at Trevor Lawrence's numbers against zone. Against man coverage, he's 5th in passer rating, 12th in completion percentage, 15th in net yards per attempt, 29th in touchdown rate. Against zone coverage, 5th, 2nd, 8th, and 5th. So I don't know if I trust the 49ers pass defense either. Now, what about defending the run? Well, that's been the weakness of the 49ers defense this whole season. Last year, this was the best run defense in the NFL. They were 2nd in DVOA, 2nd in adjusted line yards, tied for 1st in yards per carry allowed. This year, 25th, 21st, and 18th. Over the last 3 weeks, they're allowing 123 rushing yards per game on 4.5 yards per carry. Teams have not had problems running the ball in the 49ers. Now, the Jags rushing attack isn't anything crazy. They've played some tough defenses, but they're just 19th in rushing DVOA, 30th in adjusted line yards, 24th in yards per carry. But you know what? Cincinnati doesn't have a great efficient rushing attack either, and they just average 5 yards per carry on San Francisco. As far as what I'm betting in this one, I said it a few weeks ago. Jags came back from London. I basically said I'm betting them blindly until further notice. They did the same thing last year. They were struggling, went to London, won, came back as one of the hottest teams in the AFC, and it looks like the same exact thing is happening this year. Since they come back from London, I've bet them 3 straight games, and I'm 3-0. I see no reason to stop now. Getting a full 3 points at home, got to do it. Give me Jacksonville +3 next game. Titans on the road in Tampa to play the Bucks. Bucks laying 1 point here at home, total sitting at 39. Public's coming in pretty split even on this one. This line was actually Tampa Bay -1.5 earlier in the week. Sharp action seems to be coming in on the Titans though, and bet it down to 1. Injury-wise, Titans offense still going to be without Treylon Burks. He came back for that Steelers game, but he didn't look right in it. If you watch that game, you know what I'm talking about. At the end of the game, he went down on the field for a while. He's out. They're also going to be without their right guard, Daniel Brunskill. Defensively, the Titans are looking pretty good, though. Obviously, that secondary has been a problem all year. They're going to be without Murphy Bunting, the corner. Remember, this is a secondary that just recently traded Kevin Byard to Philly also. On the Bucs side, offensively, they're still missing center Ryan Jensen. I don't think he's played. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he hasn't played all year. Left guard is also listed as doubtful. He hasn't played since week 7. That rookie wide receiver 3, Trey Palmer, is listed as questionable. And remember, they lost Russell Gage for the season back in training camp. So Bucs, outside of the 2 big guys, are going to be pretty thin at wide receiver for this one. On the defensive side of the ball, the Bucs have some questionables across the board, but I think everyone on this list is going to play with the exception of maybe Carlton Davis. He missed practice on Wednesday and Thursday, so I'd say he probably doesn't play, but I think the other 3 will. I'm going to skip this one for now and save it for the live show. I don't know how we could put any faith in this Bucs pass defense, so I'm probably leaning towards Titans, but I'm not making a final decision yet. Live show Sunday morning, 11 a.m. We'll go through every game, and I'll share my final decision. So hopefully see you in the comments there. Next game. Update. So I forgot to mention, I actually already bet the over. So I got in at 38.5, I think. So I'm already in for about a half unit on the over at 38.5. I gave it out on the Discord. I'm still probably going to bet a side in this one as well. I'll let you know the final decision on the live show. I forgot to mention that I did take the over. AFC North battle is up next. Cleveland on the road at Baltimore. Ravens laying 6.5. This number's up to 6.5 now. Total sitting at 38.5. So the early action was coming in on Cleveland, but all week it's been swinging back towards Baltimore. Like I said, it's been bet up to 6.5. Action's pretty much even now. 50-50 split both the tickets and the handle. Let's talk injury reports. And Cleveland, I mean, that offensive line, man, they're missing both offensive tackles now. Jack Conklin's been out since week 1. Now Wills is out. He got carted off the field last week. And it gets worse. Their 3rd offensive tackle, DeJuan Jones, he's been ruled out. So the Browns are going to have their 4th and 5th offensive tackles starting in this game. David Njoku is also listed as questionable, but he participated in a full practice on Friday, so I would assume he's going to play. On the defensive side of the ball, though, the Browns are pretty much ready to roll. Cornerback Greg Newsome is listed as questionable, but he was able to participate in a light practice on Thursday and Friday, so he's got a good chance of playing. Rest of the Browns defense is completely healthy. On the Baltimore side of things, they're looking great on the injury report, which hasn't been the case with this Ravens team the past couple of years. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins is still out. And right tackle Morgan Moses is listed as questionable, but he's been participating in full practice all week, so I would imagine he's got a good chance of playing. Rashad Bateman was on the injury report earlier in the week, but from what I'm reading, he's going to play. On the defensive side, the Ravens are good to go. Only starter on the injury report is Marlon Humphrey. He practiced on Thursday and Friday, so I think he's going to play. Ravens defense looks good. So let's match these 2 teams up on the field. Deshaun Watson looked pretty good in his first healthy start back in action. It was against the Cardinals. But still 63% completions, 219 yards, 107.5 passer rating. If you take out that Colts game where I think he took like 5 snaps, he was still injured. If you take that one out, he's actually coming off back-to-back good games. His numbers from the Arizona and the Tennessee starts combined, 73% completions, 254 yards per game, 4 touchdowns, no picks, and a 115 passer rating. Compared to the numbers from his first 2 starts of the season, which were ugly, just 55% completions, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, and a 68 passer rating, I'd say it's a good sign for Browns fans. But we have to mention the massive difference in competition from those 2 early starts and the 2 recent starts. I mean, the last 2 opponents were the Cardinals and the Titans, 31st and 24th in pass defense DVOA. And now he's got to try to throw the ball on this Baltimore defense, who's just been elite against the pass. They're 2nd in pass defense DVOA, 1st in yards per pass attempt allowed at 4.6. They're allowing 4.6 yards per pass attempt on the season. 1st in passer rating allowed as well. 4 quarterbacks have traveled into Baltimore this season and tried to throw the ball in this defense. CJ Stroud, Gardner Minshew, I'll give you that one, but CJ Stroud, Geno Smith, and Jared Goff. Those 4 guys combined for a 69 passer rating, 5.4 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. 3 of those guys are good NFL quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson is 23rd in passing DVOA amongst 32 quarterbacks this year. And it gets a little more concerning when you consider the fact that both of Deshaun Watson's good starts this year came at home. At home, he's completing 63% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks, and 88.7 passer rating. On the road, those numbers drop a bit, just 57% completions and 81.9 passer rating. It's not extreme. extreme, but his good games have come at home in Cleveland. That's the point. I do have some good news for Deshaun Watson in the Cleveland offense, though. Baltimore runs a lot of man coverage. 54.8% of the Ravens' defensive snaps have been in man coverage this year. That's the 8th most in the NFL. Deshaun Watson has been much better against man than zone. Against man, he's completing over 70% of his passes, a 120 passer rating, 7.56 net yards per attempt. Against zone, those numbers dropped to 60% completions, 77 passer rating, and 4.89 yards per attempt. But still, I don't know if that's enough to get me on a Browns bet here. I mean, you got to consider the fact that Deshaun Watson's probably not going to have much of a safety blanket as far as a running game. The Browns' rushing attack has really fallen off without Nick Chubb. You can see the first 2 weeks of the season, they're averaging 202 rush yards per game, 5.39 yards per carry. In weeks 3 through 9, so basically since Nick Chubb got hurt, they're averaging just 124 rushing yards per game on 3.7 yards per carry. On the season, Cleveland sits just 23rd in rushing DVOA, 25th in adjusted line yards, and 14th in yards per carry. Now, Baltimore's defense is definitely stronger against the pass. I mean, if you want to beat this Ravens team, you got to run the football on them, but it's not like they have a bad run defense. They're 3rd in DVOA, 9th in adjusted line yards, and 14th in yards per carry allowed. I know Gibbs and Henry were both able to put up decent numbers running the ball in Baltimore recently, but they were down in the game and they were able to take advantage of some light boxes. Situational stats, the edge goes to the Ravens defense on this side of the ball. Cleveland's offense has actually been good in the red zone. They're 8th in red zone percentage, but they're all the way back at 31st in third down percentage. But it doesn't matter because the Ravens defense, 8th on third downs, 1st in the red zone. But let's flip it over to the other side of the ball because obviously the Ravens aren't the only elite defense in this matchup. I mentioned how the Ravens were 2nd in pass defense DVOA. Want to know who's 1st? The Browns. They are 1st in DVOA, 3rd in opponent passer rating, and 3rd in yards per pass attempt allowed. But to be fair, that didn't really stop Lamar Jackson from having a really good game against them the first time around. 15 of 19, 186 yards, 9.8 yards per pass attempt, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and a 142 passer rating. Lamar Jackson had no problem against this defense earlier in the year. We all know this Browns defense lives and dies by their elite pass rush, and I mean, their 1st in pressure rate. Their pass rush is insane. 1st in pressure rate, 3rd in adjusted sack rate, 2nd in QB hurry rate. But the thing is, nobody in the NFL has handled pressure as well as Lamar Jackson this year, and it's not even close. When pressured, Lamar Jackson is 1st in yards per pass attempt at 10. He's averaging 10 yards per dropback when he's pressured. That's nuts. 1st in PFF passer grade when pressured, 1st in passer rating, 1st in big time throw rate. Lamar Jackson has been excellent handling pressure this year. He is silencing all the Lamar Jackson's a running back, not a quarterback. All those people are being silenced. He's been good as hell. If you are on a Lamar Jackson isn't a good quarterback take, probably time to back off it. As far as run support for Lamar Jackson, they may struggle though. The Browns can defend the run as well. They just held the Cardinals to 41 yards rushing on 21 carries, just 2 yards per carry. Browns are 1st in rushing DVOA. They are 1st in pass defense DVOA and 1st in run defense DVOA. 8th in yards per carry allowed, 1st in adjusted line yards. But here's the thing with the Browns run defense. I think it might be a little overvalued. So obviously, let's just erase last week's game against the Cardinals. I mean, they played a 3rd string running back and a 3rd string quarterback. So let's not count that. If you look, they started off, the Browns run defense started off the year strong. Through the first 3 games, they were allowing just 2.78 yards per carry and 52 rush yards per game. But look at who they played in those 3 games. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee. 28th, 26th, and 7th in rushing DVOA. And the Titans are pretty much only good at home. We know that. Look at what happens when they start seeing some tougher competition. Baltimore, San Francisco, Indianapolis, Seattle. All 4 of those teams in the top 15 of rushing DVOA. In those games, the Browns defense is allowing over 130 rushing yards per game on 4.52 yards per carry. So I think the Ravens can run the ball in this Browns run defense. I don't care what the numbers say. Last time they played, they were able to run the ball a bit. I mean, it wasn't an explosive performance. 33 carries for 131 yards. That's 4 yards per carry. But the Seahawks and Lions both have excellent run defenses, and Baltimore just ran all over them. In those 2 games, 222 rushing yards per game, 6.53 yards per carry. So yeah, I think the Ravens can run the ball in Cleveland. Situational stats on this side of the ball, the Ravens have been really good on 3rd downs and in the red zone, 6th in both categories. The Browns, excellent on 3rd downs, 1st in 3rd down percentage as far as their defense goes, but 28th in red zone percentage. So if Baltimore is able to get the ball in the red zone, they should convert 6s instead of 3s. And last but not least, let's finish with a trend. The Baltimore Ravens are 7-1 against the spread against Cleveland when Lamar Jackson plays. 7-1 against the spread in their last 8. I can't believe I'm considering taking Baltimore here, but I feel like you have to take this team. They are just a wagon right now. In these AFC North rivalry games, I feel like you always have to take the underdog, but I can't here. My favorite bet in this one is probably the under at 38.5. So give me the under at 38.5, and I'm probably going to take Baltimore as well. I'll let you know the final decision on the live show, but I'm leaning Baltimore -6.5 next game. Houston on the road at Cincinnati. Bengals are laying 6.5 points at home, which is down from 7. Total sitting at 47. So this line opened up at 7, like I said. Sharps absolutely hammered Houston at that number. It got bet down to 6.5. Since then, action seems to be coming in pretty heavy on Cincinnati. So the pros like Houston at that 7 number, but at 6.5 or lower, everyone seems to be on Cincinnati. I'm going to skip this one for now, too. Now they're saying Jamar Chase may not play. So I actually already put a few dollars down on Cincinnati -6.5. I'll let you know what the final decision is on the live show Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time, next game. Saints at Vikings. This line is now Minnesota +3, which is up from 2.5. Total sitting at 41. Public's coming in pretty split even on this one. Line was at 2.5 for a few days, but some sharps came in and really hammered the Saints and bet it up to 3. Since then, things have been coming in pretty 50-50. This is another one I'm going to skip and save for the live show. I will tell you straight up, I'm not going to lay 3 or more on the road with the Saints. So as long as it's 3 or above, I'm probably leaning Minnesota, but I don't know if I'm actually going to bet it with Dobbs at quarterback. So yeah, I'm skipping it for now, leaning Minnesota next game. Packers at Steelers. Green Bay on the road in Pittsburgh. Steelers laying a full 3 here. Actually, as I'm recording this, I see a couple 3.5s popping up. Total sitting at 38.5. Public's coming in heavy on Pittsburgh in this one. Most books still have this at 3, but like I said, I am seeing some 3.5s pop up, and most of the 3s are juiced pretty heavily to Pittsburgh -120. So I would imagine closer to kickoff, this one's going to be 3.5 across the board. Let's talk injuries. Green Bay offensively, they got serious issues on the offensive line here in Green Bay. Obviously, Bakhtiari out for the season, but the Packers' third offensive tackle, his name's Nyman. That's the guy who's been starting in place of Bakhtiari. He might not play. He missed Wednesday's practice. He did participate in a light practice on Thursday, so we'll have to wait and see on him. Same goes for right guard John Runyon. He missed Wednesday's practice and was limited in Thursday's practice. Center Josh Myers, he wasn't even on the injury report to start the week. They added him on Thursday. Apparently, he injured his knee in practice or something. Good news is left guard Jenkins is probably going to play. He hasn't missed a practice this week. He was listed as questionable last week as well, and he ended up playing, so I think he should be good. And Aaron Jones is in the same boat as Jenkins. He's been limited in practice, but I'm pretty sure they're just being cautious with them. He should be out there. Packers secondary is in such rough shape here. Obviously, Eric Stokes is still out. He's been out since week 1. Darnell Savage still on the IR as well. Jair Alexander hasn't practiced all week. Looks like he may be sitting this one out. Also, keep in mind, this is a secondary that just lost Rasul Douglas in a trade to the Bills, and Rudy Ford is questionable. The other safety, he's listed as questionable. He did participate in light practice, but this Packers secondary is an absolute crime scene. On the Steelers side of things, offense is looking pretty good. Pat Freiermuth is going to be the only missing piece on the offense. Other than that, they're at full strength. On the defensive side of the ball, there are a couple concerns here. First of all, Cam Hayward missed Thursday's practice. He just returned from a long-term injury. Now they're saying he might have suffered a setback. He might not play. Another guy on the defensive line, Adams, he hasn't practiced all week with a knee injury. He might not play either. So the Steelers, who run primarily 3 down linemen, they might be missing 2 of them. Minkah Fitzpatrick, he hasn't practiced all week as well. We all know how important he is to that defense. Doesn't look like he's going to be back on the field this week. He missed last week's game as well. Linebacker Cole Holcomb, also out. He just got hurt last week in the Titans game, and he landed Roberts, the guy that would start in Holcomb's spot. He missed practice on Thursday, so he might not even play. Both of these defenses are just a mess as far as injuries, so this is another one I'm going to skip and save for the live show. I can tell you, I'm probably going to take the Packers at 3.5. It's disgusting, but that's the way I'm leaning, so I'm not making any final decisions, but I'm leaning Green Bay next game. Falcons at Cardinals in the ultimate who gives a shit game of the week. Arizona getting 1.5 points at home here, total sitting at 43. Public's coming in heavy on the Cardinals in this one. I guess everyone's pumped for Kyler Murray to return, I guess. Line hasn't moved, so sportsbooks don't seem too worried about playing against all that Arizona action. Yeah, I'm skipping this one. I mean, I'm not going to bet the Cardinals just because Kyler Murray's coming back. I mean, I guess I'd lean Atlanta, but I'll make a final. I will give out a bet, and I'll probably bet this game. I'll let you know on the live show, but This isn't going to be one of my bigger bets of the week. Next game. Lions on the road in LA to play the Chargers. This should be a cool one. Chargers now catching a full 3 points at home here. This number's up from 2.5. Total sitting at 48.5. Public is all over the Lions here. Detroit, one of the most public plays on the board. This number was at 1.5 on Tuesday morning. It's been bet up all the way to 3. Action still seems to be coming in on Detroit. I'm guessing this one has a good chance of closing up at 3.5. As far as injury reports, Detroit is good to go on offense. No need to go through injuries here because everyone is healthy. On the defensive side of the ball, we don't have any new injuries for the Lions, but they're still missing those same 3 pieces that they've been missing for multiple weeks now. Manuel Mosley, CJ Gardner-Johnson, both still out. Also James Houston, who was one of the main pieces on that pass rush in the second half of last season when they got hot. He's been out for a while himself. Chargers offensively definitely dealing with some injuries here. Center Corey Linsley has a heart issue. He's been out for a while. 2 big injuries at wide receiver. Obviously, Mike Williams out for the season. And now it was announced that Joshua Palmer will be out long-term as well. So 2 wide receivers missing from this Chargers offense. I don't have any notes written for the Chargers defense as far as injuries, so I think they're completely healthy. I saw Joey Bosa listed on the injury report, but he's not there anymore. So Chargers defense looks good to go. So let's match these 2 teams up on the field. We'll start with the Lions offense. And whenever you're talking about the Lions offense, specifically the passing offense, you got to start with home away splits because as we know, same thing's happening this year that was happening last year. We see a significant drop off in production from Jared Goff on the road. At home, he's completing 72% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, a 106 passer rating. On the road, just 65% completions, 4 touchdowns, 2.75 sacks per game. So he's been under a lot more pressure on the road and just at 88 passer rating on the road. Got some good news for Jared Goff, though. Chargers defense run a lot of man coverage. 54.2% of the Chargers defensive snaps are in man coverage, 6th most in the NFL. Jared Goff has been a beast against man coverage this year. Against zone coverage, he's 26th in passer rating, 22nd in net yards per attempt. Against man coverage, he's 4th and 4th. Now let's talk about the Chargers pass defense, and actually flying high right now, allowing just 19 points combined and a 71.3 average passer rating in their last 2 games. But let's not throw them a parade for it because it was against Zach Wilson and Tyler Bagent. In the previous 5 games before those 2 against first-string quarterbacks, they were allowing an average passer rating of 114.9. Perhaps the best news ever for this Chargers defense, though, the pass rush seems to be waking up. And when you have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa on the edges, that's what you need. That's it. The Chargers need that pass rush to wake up. Coming off an 8-sack performance against the Jets, and this is Jared Goff. He's one of those guys that has serious splits when pressured. Jared Goff, amongst 37 qualified quarterbacks, when he's pressured, 25th in passer rating, 32nd in interceptions. When he's given a clean pocket, 6th in passer rating, tied for 2nd in interceptions. When it comes to the run game, the Lions offense has definitely seen a boost as far as efficiency goes. Weeks 1 through 3, 111 rush yards per game, 3.64 yards per carry. Since then, weeks 4 through 9, 143 rushing yards per game on 4.7 yards per carry. And if you take out the game where both Montgomery and Gibbs were hurt, because the Lions were rocking with a 3rd, 4th string running back in there, if you take out that game, on the season, the Lions are averaging 169 rush yards per game on 5.2 yards per carry. As we know, Gibbs coming off a breakout game against the Raiders. I mean, he's averaging 5.3 yards per carry on the season. Against the Raiders, he had 26 carries, 152 yards on 5.8 yards per carry. But hold on a second, because this Chargers defense is starting to look pretty good against the run. Last year, they were absolutely dreadful against the run. They were 30th in run defense DVOA, 32nd in yards per carry allowed. This season, 20th and 6th. And they're on a bit of a heater here, this Chargers run defense. In their last 5 games, they're allowing just 75 rushing yards per game on 3.28 yards per carry. Nobody's been running the ball in the Chargers recently. The bad news for the Chargers defense, they've been great at limiting running backs on the ground, but they've actually been getting ripped apart by running backs through the air. 2nd most receiving yards allowed to running backs in the NFL. 3rd most pass attempts to running backs allowed in the NFL. They're 28th in DVOA against running backs through the air. As we know, one of Gibbs' strongest traits dating back to last year at Alabama is his receiving ability. He's great out of the backfield. That's a nightmare matchup for the Chargers. Situational stats, actually, the edge goes to the Chargers defense here. The Lions have been pretty good on 3rd down, 13th in 3rd down conversions, but the Chargers defense is 6th in 3rd down conversions. And red zone also, edge goes to the Chargers defense. On the other side of the ball, let's give some props to the Lions pass defense. Despite all those injuries to the secondary, they've still taken a giant leap forward forward this year. Last year, as we know, the Lions were just getting ripped apart through the air. 23rd, 25th, and 31st in DVOA, opponent passer rating and yards per attempt. This season, 8th, 11th, 11th. But here's the thing with the Lions pass defense, and hear me out. They haven't really been tested since taking the injuries to the secondary. CJ Gardner-Johnson went down with a torn pec against Seattle in week 2. Look at the quarterbacks they've seen since then. Desmond Ridder, 70 passer rating. Jordan Love, Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, and Jimmy Garoppolo. The only good quarterback the Lions have seen since losing the pieces to their secondary was Lamar Jackson, and he had a 153 passer rating. He had a perfect passer rating and absolutely murdered the Lions secondary. And that's intriguing because this Chargers pass offense might be in a buy low spot after that Jets game on Monday night. Justin Herbert just 136 yards through the air, 4.5 yards per pass attempt, and a 65 passer rating. But that was a horrible matchup for Justin Herbert. MetLife Stadium has been a nightmare for any quarterback to go in and produce. Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, and Josh Allen, the four of them trying to go into MetLife Stadium, they combined for 62% completions, 5.9 yards per attempt, and an average passer rating of 62.8. So I'm not going to crush Herbert for not being able to throw the ball in this Jets defense in MetLife Stadium, because no one can. And now Justin Herbert gets to see a Lions pass defense that, number one, I feel is very overvalued, as I said before, and number two, blitzes a lot. The Lions have a very high blitz rate. They blitz a lot. Justin Herbert has ripped blitzes to shreds. When blitzed this year, Justin Herbert leads the NFL in touchdown passes, 4th in completion percentage, and 2nd in passer rating. Justin Herbert destroys the blitz. I think this is a beautiful get-right spot for Justin Herbert here at home. All right, now what about the run game? Let's talk about the Lions' run defense, and is this unit falling apart? We got to ask. Entering last week, check this out. Entering last week, the Raiders were 32nd in rushing DVOA, dead last, worst rushing team in the NFL. Josh Jacobs entering that game had averaged 3.6 yards per carry or fewer in all 7 games this season. He's averaging just 2.9 yards per carry on the season. Against Detroit, he averaged 4.1 yards per carry. One drive, the Raiders literally handed it off to Josh Jacobs. What was it, 8 straight times? 7. Because on the drive, he had 7 carries, 38 yards. They literally just ran the ball down the throat of the Lions defense, and they had no answers for it. Detroit's defense through the first 6 games was allowing just 64.7 rushing yards per game on 3.27 yards per carry. In the 2 games since then, 113 rushing yards per game on over 5 yards per carry. The good news for the Detroit Lions is the Chargers' run game doesn't inspire much hope. We all know they ran all over the Dolphins in week 1, but run game's pretty much been a non-factor since then. Since Eckler has returned, he's averaging just 37 rushing yards per game, 2.6 yards per carry. But again, those are similar to the numbers Josh Jacobs was averaging, and the Raiders were able to run the ball in this Lions defense, so maybe the Chargers are able to run the ball also. Situational stats, on third downs, Lions defense have the edge. The Lions defense is excellent, 2nd in third down conversion rate. Chargers offense has been pretty good. They're 12th in third downs, but obviously the edge goes to the Lions at 2nd. Red zone, edge definitely goes to LA here. Chargers are 2nd in red zone percentage on the season. Lions defense, 26th. As far as my bet in this game, I'm definitely on the Chargers at 3. When I first saw the 3s pop up, I bet it a little bit. If I see a 3.5 out there, I'm going to bet it again. So I'm on LA. Give me the Chargers plus 3. Would love to get a 3.5 next game. Giants at Cowboys. This should be a great one. Dallas laying 17 points. I believe this is the highest point spread of the year so far. Total sitting at 39. Public's all over the Cowboys still. Everyone's laying the points. This number's been bet up from 16.5 to 17. Actually, I'm starting to see some 17.5s out there as well. Nobody's backing that kid DeVito at quarterback. Yeah, no shot that I'm taking time to break down this game. No shot. What? Next. Commanders at Seahawks. Seattle laying 6 points at home here. Total sitting at 44.5. So Public's coming in on the Seahawks heavy, but this line actually dropped recently. There's definitely some sharps out there that like Washington. It actually dropped from 6.5 to 6, and I'm seeing a couple 5.5s out there, which is why I'm going to skip this one for now and save it for Sunday. I don't know what I'm missing. I personally think Seattle should be laying a touchdown or more here. So now it's down to 5.5. I know anyone who gambles regularly knows that feeling when it's like, this feels too obvious. So I think I'm going to bet Seattle, but I would like to see what all these professional bettors are seeing on the Washington side. I would like to at least understand their angle before placing my bet. So I'm leaning Seattle. I'll let you know on Sunday morning on the live show. Next game. The New York Jets are on the road in Vegas to play the Raiders. Raiders are now laying 1 point at home here. Total sitting at 36.5. Public is all over Las Vegas. People are really feeling this new look post McDaniels Raiders team. This line was Raiders plus 1.5 on Tuesday morning. It's now a pick'em. Raiders are even favored by 1 on some books, but I'm also seeing Jets -1 on some books. So it's pretty much just a pick'em. Action still seems to be coming in on the Raiders. Injury-wise, the Jets offense still completely beat up, specifically the offensive line. They're missing 3 starters, and check this out. They're also missing 2 of the backup linemen that would be the likely starters in place of the injured pieces. Billy Turner just got hurt last week, so the Jets are going to have the 10th offensive lineman on their depth chart starting in this one. Good news for the Jets, though, that defense, which we all know is the anchor of the Jets team, they're ready to roll. Quincy Williams was on the injury report earlier in the week, but it's looking like he's fine. Main pieces on the Jets defense will all be active. Raiders offensively, completely healthy, with the exception of left tackle Colton Miller. He hasn't practiced all week, and he's listed as doubtful. Raiders defense also looking great injury-wise. Marcus Peters is the only starter on the report here. He's listed as questionable, but he did participate in a light practice on Thursday and Friday, so I would say he most likely plays. We'll see. So let's match these two teams up on the field, and why don't we start with the electric Jets passing offense? Jets passing game is pretty awful with Zach Wilson at the helm, as expected. 29th in passing DVOA, 30th in passer rating, 30th in yards per pass attempt. Zach Wilson's ranks amongst 37 qualified quarterbacks, 33rd in completion percentage, 32nd in yards per... You get the point. 30th, 33rd, you get the point. Jets have struggled to throw the ball. The injuries on the Jets offensive line certainly hasn't helped the cause at all. Jets are 28th in adjusted sack rate allowed on the year, 26th in pressure rate allowed. And let's give some props to the Raiders defense, specifically against the pass. There's a lot wrong with this team, and there's a lot of blame to be thrown around, but they've taken a real significant step forward from last year as far as defending the pass. Last year, 30th in pass defense DVOA, 32nd in opponent passer rating, 27th in yards per pass attempt allowed. This year, 15th, 16th, and 8th. And this Raiders pass rush is another unit that I think is a little better than the numbers indicate. I mean, they're pretty middle of the pack as far as pressure rate, QB hurry rate, but we just saw them absolutely crush the Giants. 8 sacks last week. So on paper, Zach Wilson shouldn't be able to go on the road and throw the ball in this Raiders defense. I mean, Raiders also run a lot of zone coverage. Zach Wilson's really struggled against zone. Just doesn't look good for the Jets passing game. What about the run game, though? Well, that really hasn't been there for the Jets either. They really haven't been able to produce. On the season, the Jets are just 26th in rushing DVOA, 27th in adjusted line yards. I know they're 5th in yards per carry, but Breece Hall has broken 2 or 3 long ones. That's really just skewing the numbers there. Overall, the Jets have not been successfully generating consistent production from the run game. And it's trending in the wrong direction as well. Through the first 5 games, the Jets were averaging 123 rushing yards per game, 5.4 yards per carry. In their last 3 games, just 70 rushing yards per game on 3.3 yards per carry. I do have some good news for the Jets offense, which is rare. Jets offense doesn't get good news often. Raiders have been terrible trying to defend the run this year. One of the worst in the NFL. 29th in run defense DVOA, 32nd in adjusted line yards, 27th in yards per carry allowed. 8 of the last 9 Raiders opponents have ran for 4.3 yards per carry or more. It's also been 4 games since we've seen Breece Hall break one of his signature long runs. His longest rush in his last 3 games have been 9, 5, and 10 yards. So I think it's time for Breece Hall to break one here. Let's talk situational stats, and good Lord, can we give the edge to nobody? Jets offense dead last on third downs, dead last in the red zone. Raiders defense 26th and 27th. I guess the Raiders have the slight edge, but no, let's just move on to the next stat. Now we get to the Jets defense, and obviously this is where we start to find some value in New York. Jets defense just as dominant against the pass this year as they were last year. They're 4th in pass defense DVOA, 4th in opponent passer rating, 2nd in yards per pass attempt allowed. I will say there might be some concern about the home away splits here. We know that they've been absolutely dominant against the pass at home at MetLife Stadium. Their 2 games away from MetLife haven't been the same. So opponents at MetLife Stadium, just a 62.7 passer rating, 4 touchdowns, 7 picks. On the road, a 109.6 passer rating, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Now, it's important to mention the Jets have only played 2 road games. So those 2 games were Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott. So, I mean, is that enough of a sample size to declare the Jets' pass defense isn't as good on the road? I don't think 2 games is enough. Either way, at home, on the road, I don't have much hope for the Raiders' passing offense here. I mean, this is still a top 5 pass defense against a rookie making his 3rd start. And Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott are veterans. They're just light years ahead of where Aiden O'Connell is right now as an NFL starting quarterback. Aiden O'Connell threw 2 starts, 223 yards per game, no touchdowns with a pick, 77 passer rating. He's also got a 43.8 pressure to sack rate, which is very high, meaning when he gets pressure, he usually takes the sack. He doesn't get the ball out. That was against the Giants and the Chargers. I mean, this is the Jets. Just to hammer home my point here, Aiden O'Connell when pressured. So we had to adjust the filter. There's now 42 qualified quarterbacks. So Aiden O'Connell had enough data to make the list. But amongst 42 qualified quarterbacks with 17 plus snaps under pressure, Aiden O'Connell's 40th in completion percentage. 37th in completion percentage, 37th in yards per attempt, 38th in passer grade, tied for 42nd in big time throw percentage at 0, and tied for 42nd in pressure to sack rate. So Aiden O'Connell's really struggled to handle pressure so far in his young career. And I got some bad news for him. Jets pass rush is finally starting to show up. If you remember, they got off to a super slow start. Just 7 sacks through their first 4 games. They've had 15 sacks in their last 4. On the season, they're now up to 4th in pressure rate, 9th in QB hurry rate, and 8th in adjusted sack rate. So the Jets pass rush finally arriving. And then you add on the fact that the Jets have Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, who are going to be manned up on Adams and Myers all game. I don't see how Aiden O'Connell is successful throwing the ball in this game. On paper, the avenue for the Raiders to score points on the Jets would be running the ball. Jets defense on the season is just 21st in run defense DVOA, 22nd in yards per carry. But if you look closer at the Jets defensive numbers, it's not running backs that have been killing the Jets on the ground, it's quarterbacks. If you look at their numbers specifically against running backs, they're 4th in adjusted line yards. So that defensive line is creating space and getting push, and they're just 13th in yards per carry allowed to running backs. The last 3 running backs to face the Jets, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, and DeAndre Swift, they combined for just 64 rushing yards per game, 3.21 yards per carry. So I don't see Josh Jacobs doing anything in this game either. Good news for the Raiders would be they are starting to show some signs of life running the ball. Through the first 7 games, Josh Jacobs just 2.9 yards per carry. In the last 2 games, 3.9 yards per carry. I mean, 3.9 yards per carry is still not where they want to be, but I guess it's a slight improvement. I don't expect the run game to be there, and with Aiden O'Connell lacking mobility, I just don't see how we can count on the Raiders to consistently move the chains and put up points in this game. Situational stats on this side of the ball, edge definitely goes to the Jets. Red zone edge definitely goes to the Jets. 4th in red zone percentage. They're 20th on 3rd downs, but the Raiders' offense have been terrible on 3rd downs. I'm on the Jets, man. I'm taking the Jets money line. It's pretty much out of pick 'em here. So even if the line is Jets -1, I'll just take the money line. Give me the Jets, and it's a primetime game. I learned my lesson trying to catch a falling knife. I'll also be on the under in this one. Before we close that out, I do have an underdog pick 'em here. It's a 3 pick, so it pays out 6 times. This one comes from me personally, not Prop Beaver. I'm going with Jonathan Taylor lower than 68.5 rushing yards, Travis Etienne higher than 65.5 rushing yards, Gus Edwards higher than 46.5 rushing yards. If you don't have an Underdog Fantasy account, it's available in any state highlighted on this map. So if you're in one of these states, head over to Underdog Fantasy, the website, or you can download the app. When you make your account, make sure you use the promo code BET, B-E-T. That'll get you a $100 deposit bonus. So you deposit $100, they will give you a free $100 to play with. NFL Week 10. Let's have a good Sunday, man. I mean, I've just been hovering, took a couple losing days recently. It's been like 2 weeks since I had a real monster day. Let's have ourselves a good one. Hopefully, would love to see you in the comments on the live show Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Should start right around halftime of the Europe game. So if you're able to make it, would love to see you. Let's have a great week. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.